Story 1. Put all my money into the most secure investments I can find and tell no one I have it, then live off the interest. Story 2. Book a boring hotel room, turn off my phone, and spend a whole day doing absolutely nothing just to let it sink in. Then figure out the smart things. Story 3. Pay off every debt my family and I owe, breathe for a minute, then call a reliable financial planner before I get any wild ideas. Story 4. Disappear. Suddenly, friends I have not seen since 2012 start just checking in with investment tips. Story 5. Keep quiet about it. Think of a way to invest it so it grows well and I can live off it without worrying about money. Story 6. I go onto the Porsche configurator and just have a play around. I wonder if they would let me do a Panamera in Viper Green. Story 7. Invest it and pretend it does not exist. It is strange to think, but 1 million is not that much money anymore. Story 8. Pay my girlfriend's mortgage off. It is her house. She had it before she met me. She saved for the deposit and everything. I just walked in like a lucky man. I pay the bills, but not the mortgage. I do not want to claim part of something I do not deserve. Story 9. Buy a Land Cruiser and kit it out to the highest standard. Travel Australia for a few years in that vehicle. Story 10. Pay off house, $150,000. College fund for child, $100,000. New roof, furnace, air conditioning, $30,000. 2 reliable cars, $70,000. Donate to animal shelter and local Alcoholics Anonymous, $50,000. Continue my life as normal. I will just take a check for $400,000 and we will call it even. Story 11. Make sure my 2 beautiful grandchildren have their education paid for. That is the first thing I would do. Story 12. Put her in a diversified investment portfolio and not touch anything but dividends after 10 years. I will put it behind a trust until then and require myself to follow the rules I set. Love the peace of mind knowing I can retire with immense comfort at the age of 50. Story 13. Buy an ultrasound unit, my favorite diagnostic tool. I like the images. Maybe consider other more useful tools after that. Story 14. Travel to Mexico, change my identity, and then travel to the place where I plan to spend the rest of my life. Story 15. Pay off my home loan, then get my postgraduate certificate in education, then buy another house, then teach in a poor school because I will not need the money. Converting United States dollars to my own currency makes me very rich here. Story 16. Pay off credit cards, take care of my parents' debts, keep working because I am too young to retire. I would stop dealing with nonsense at work though because it would hurt a lot less if I got fired at that point. They would get the unfiltered me. Story 17. I think about this a lot in case it ever happens. I would immediately buy a car and then a house. Story 18. Quit and find something that does not cause that kind of stress. I would love to work in the current company because I like my colleagues, if that is acceptable. Story 19. Probably just invest 90%, use 5% for traveling, and the rest for daily lifestyle enhancements throughout the years. Story 20. Pay off the house, buy a better car, enjoy a nice holiday, and give a cash gift to each child. I would still have a comfortable nest egg afterward. Story 21. Pay off both my and my brother's student loans, buy my brother a car, then find a decent place to live. Story 22. Pay off this mortgage and the other debts associated with it. Put the rest in savings until the next tax season and determine how much I have left. Story 23. Buy property for $700,000. Keep it around 2 or 3 years. Maintain fees and taxes in a high-yield savings account, $75,000. Invest a lump sum of $175,000 in my exchange-traded fund portfolio. Use the rest for leisure such as vacations, restaurants, and gifts. Story 24. Give reluctantly 40% to the government and with $600,000 pay off the mortgage. Not having the biggest bill on my hands is definitely life-changing money. Story 25. $1 million is not that much in terms of the lottery. After taxes, it might be $400,000. Not even enough to buy a small house in most places. Story 26. I am old enough to have built up savings, meaning I have all the necessities I need. Perhaps an addition to my storage space like a warehouse. I don't own that many goods to store, I know most of us don't. But here's where the important part comes in. I do love my collection of toy blasters that launch rubber or water gel beads, even a legal air gun. Though I don't have much use for them, I just love firing at empty drink canisters or cartons with targets, or goggle-protected humans who expect an assault and are armed themselves. It's all sports for me if it's about launching projectiles at objects or others. Yes, trigger-happy, Nerf, paintball, and airsoft/gel bead lover in a nutshell for the sport and fun. I would use that storage space to store things, protected obviously. The rest of the space, a lot, I would use or rent it for battles with Nerf, airsoft, paintball, gel beads, etc. with indoor plumbing, targets, snack and drink vending machines, and hiding places included. It would be a great excuse to extend my collection. Yes, Eugene Tackleberry from Police Academy is my hero. David Graff, I loved his appearance in Star Trek also, and we all know producers don't hire the first one who shows up, unless you're Mark Allen Shepard, but he deserved it. Story 27. Buy 10 bottles of Gatorade, a hot chocolate, 2 coffees, 2 liters of cold water, 1 liter of milk, a box of Splice ice creams, strawberries, a barbecue chicken with mayonnaise and bread rolls, and watch reels. Story 28. I would buy 10 houses where I live and rent them. I would take one for myself so I can move out of my toxic environment. Story 29. Pay off my and my family's homes. Get a new car, finally. Invest the rest, or invest it all and take dividends to help pay off those things over time. Story 30. Buy a home for my mother outside of the United States, probably in Portugal or New Zealand. Then buy a home for myself next to hers. Story 31. Immediately call my supervisor and resign. Then, buy a very comfortable mattress and sleep for a week. Story 32. Pay off debts. Then establish 4 funds. Local animal rescue, school lunches for children, Meals on Wheels for senior citizens, and home care for veterans. The last 3 will be defunded by the federal government in a few years. I believe the money would do a lot of good in these areas. Story 33. Split and deposit them into different bank accounts while I determine what expenses I need to cover. I will only convert when I am sure. Story 34. Pay off my house and save the rest. Keep my job and start investing, maybe buy another house to rent. Story 35. If I had $1 million. If I had $1 million. Well, I'd buy you a house. I would buy you a house. And if I had $1 million. If I had $1 million. I'd buy you furniture for your house. Maybe a nice Chesterfield or an ottoman. And if I had $1 million. If I had $1 million. Well, I'd buy you a K-car. A nice Reliant automobile. And if I had $1 million. I'd buy your love. If I had $1 million. I'd build a tree fort in our yard. If I had $1 million. You could help, it wouldn't be that hard. If I had $1 million. Maybe we can put a little tiny fridge in there somewhere. You know, we could just go up there and hang. Like open the fridge and stuff. And there would already be food laid out for us. Like little pre-wrapped sausages and things. They have pre-wrapped sausages, but they don't have pre-wrapped bacon. Well, can you blame them? Yeah. If I had $1 million. If I had $1 million. Well, I'd buy you a fur coat. But not a real fur coat, that's cruel. And if I had $1 million. If I had $1 million. Well, I'd buy you an exotic pet. Yep, like a llama or an emu. And if I had $1 million. If I had $1 million. Well, I'd buy you John Merrick's remains. Ooh, all them crazy elephant bones. And if I had $1 million. I'd buy your love. If I had $1 million. We wouldn't have to walk to the store. If I had $1 million. Now, we'd take a limousine because it costs more. If I had $1 million. We wouldn't have to eat craft dinner. But we would eat craft dinner. Of course we'd just eat more. And buy really expensive ketchups with it. That's right, all the fanciest Dijon ketchup, If I had $1 million. If I had $1 million. Well, I'd buy you a green dress. But not a real green dress, that's cruel. And if I had $1 million. If I had $1 million. Well, I'd buy you some art. A Picasso or a Garfunkel. If I had $1 million. If I had $1 million, well, I'd buy you a monkey. Haven't you always wanted a monkey? If I had $1 million, I'd buy your love. If I had $1 million, 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 I'd be rich. Story 36, short term. I would buy something, anything I want, not extravagant, but something so I can feel what it is like to not have to think about whether it is worth it or not and can just go, I want that, so I am buying it. For example, a new pair of trainers, Lego set, game console, or something similar. Long-term house. Story 37. Buying a house, then getting a new phone. After that, it will sit in a cash individual savings account until I need it. Maybe a better car if I want to push the boat out. Story 38. Hug the wife. Then grab a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle. Then invest half in index funds and half in real estate. Story 39. Winning $1 million is not all that much. After taxes, I would get to keep only about $640,000. That is enough to invest and hopefully accumulate a modest 5 or 6% dividend income. Keep reinvesting that until retirement, and you might possibly have something to retire on. The first thing I would do is start researching dividend stocks and index funds. Story 40. Fully fund my emergency fund. Save for my children's college expenses. Pay off my home. Invest 15% into my retirement 401k plan. Buy my mother a home closer to us. Story 41. Make some super irresponsible purchases, but not so irresponsible that I can't do anything. Just a few $1,000s on a couple of things that I don't need. If you didn't say this, you're lying. Story 42. I would leave the United States. I would start the process for one of the golden visas available for Spain or Portugal and leave this place for good. Story 43. Send 30% to the federal government and 10% to the state government. Otherwise, April rolls around, and I have to ask my accountant if I can pay my taxes with things like jet skis and Rolex watches. Story 44. Invest all into the stock market. Take out 4% each year as a second income and leave the rest to grow. That gives $40,000 a year. Expenses are currently $2,500 per month, so that leaves $10,000 for general expenses. This means the missus does not need to work anymore, and I can take a low-stress job for fun money. Seems pretty sorted to me. Story 45. I live in a high-tax state, so the first thing I would do is realize that between state and federal taxes, I would really have about $500,000. Story 46. If I move up and be realistic with myself, I know for sure $1 million is not enough, but it is a good start for investment. Story 47. Put a down payment on a house near where I live now. Most homes for sale are $1 million or more, and I want to keep about $200,000 for repairs, savings, and enjoyment. Story 48. Pay all my bills, pay my trailer park rent for 6 months, get all of my utilities credited by thousands, buy a nice vehicle and caravan that is fully off-grid, and invest in mutual funds. Story 49. Set money aside for taxes on the $1 million, pay off my house, buy my mother-in-law a condominium to get her out of our house, and save or invest whatever is left. Story 50. Buy a house and probably nothing else. The housing prices are insane where I live in Paris, France. I would just wait patiently with everyone else. Story 51. Put it in a high-yield savings account or a certificate of deposit. The interest should net you around $4,000 to $5,000 a month. Story 52. Hire a group of unpleasant strippers and have them perform striptease messages for all of my former bosses and difficult coworkers at the most embarrassing times, such as their anniversaries and children's birthday parties. Story 53. Pay off debt, cancel all my overtime, go car shopping. That's day 1 out of the way. Then I would go house shopping. Nothing crazy, but it would be nice not to rent. Story 54. Invest it. Pretty much all of it. I would use a bit to pay off some debt, but the rest goes into an investment. Story 55. Buy some property. Secondly, help family members who genuinely want to have a relationship with me with their financial burdens. Story 56. Save it carefully. Maybe invest a bit, but mostly save it for retirement. $1 million is not much these days, even if it would be the most money I have ever had at one time. Story 57, two women at the same time. Story 58, honestly, nothing. I would not tell a soul and would just go about my life like normal. Yes, I would spoil myself a little bit here and there, but no one would have to know. Story 59, collect the money. Make sure it is real. Then I will think about it. 1 million is not that much anymore. It will not buy me a nice house with a small bit of land anywhere now. Collect the money first. Story 60, rest, then take a nap, then rest again, then take a shower, then eat a snack. Only then would I make any important decision. Story 61, give my heavily indebted children a new lease on life and pay off a large portion of their debt. I would not give them money directly because they do not know how to handle it. They are all in their 30s. I have taught and helped them with budgets and spending, but without success. I have helped them get out of trouble repeatedly. If I suddenly had $1 million, that is exactly what I would do. Then I would say, this is your last chance. Do not mess it up. Story 62, 1. Make sure the money is securely in my account. Contact my certified public accountant to ask how much I should set aside for taxes. Pay off my house, $320,000. Set aside $100,000 for some home improvement projects. Invest any remaining funds in my retirement accounts. Story 63, invest most of it. Take a vacation. $1 million is not that much after taxes, especially if you are not close to retirement. Story 64, accept the funds into an offshore account. Open a trust to invest in my startup and launch my business. Story 65, purchase a modest condominium and consider buying a used Porsche 911 for leisure driving. Maximize contributions to my registered retirement savings plan and tax-free savings account. Invest the rest and keep my current job. Story 66, I would pay $370,000 in federal taxes and $66,000 in state taxes. The remaining $564,000 I would invest in index funds. Story 67, pay off my debts, get a house, help provide as much as I can for my family and friends, genuinely contribute to a dog charity, and then live off the rest. Story 68, half goes to charity, half goes to savings. I take out a few hundred or thousand to buy cool items I want, such as Magic, the Gathering decks or game consoles. Story 69, buy a house for my mother and my wife so her mother can come and live in a better place. Then invest the remaining money and work part-time. Story 70, pay off my house and all debts. Add $200,000 to growable accounts for my children's education and life-start expenses. Build a 60 by 60 shop. Continue working but begin a side business for performance cars and trucks. Story 71, invest in a stable investment with the highest rate of return available, then ignore it until retirement. Story 72, add it to my investments and go back to work. It would be great, but it would not leapfrog me straight to retirement. Story 73, pay my student loans off, then pay off the children's student loans, and if there is enough left over, maybe buy a car. Story 74, first, I would leave the money in my bank account for a week in case it is a banking error. Once I have confirmed it is mine, I would schedule a meeting with my investment advisor and figure out a way to retire in 10 years instead of 17 and a half. Story 75, clear out debt. These student loans are not going to pay themselves, and with 2 children, there is more coming. Story 76, put the money in the bank and then return to work. It is a significant amount and will help me greatly, but it is not enough for me to retire now. Story 77, pay off our mortgage. Then make a cash offer on the empty lot next to ours. Not our home, just an empty lot we own. After that, build a small 30 by 30 foot house on it. Next, replace one of our vehicles. Put the rest into a savings fund for our child and ourselves. I anticipate that will be near $400,000 after all debts are paid. Finally, return to work as usual. Story 78, had $1 million. It really does not go as far as you think. Income is much better. Do not buy any toys. Invest and only spend the interest on top of what you already earn. Keep the 1 million collecting dust. Story 79. Conseguir una persona que administre mi dinero, ahorrar parte de él, darle un cuarto a mi madre y el resto invertirlo o algo así. No sé. Story 80. Pay off my house, pay for repairs and renovations for the house, pay off the remaining debt, set aside money for emergencies, and then have a small celebration with the rest. Story 81. Student debt, then buying a house outright. No payments, just taxes. Then depositing the rest into a bank account with a high yield. Story 82. Create generational wealth. Create 4 brokerage certificates of deposit in one brokerage account. Each brokerage certificate of deposit should be with a different bank. That way, the money is insured up to $250,000 per account. I would only spend the interest of 0.04%. That's $40,000 a year. Not a lot per se, but it will help. Story 83. Convert those United States dollars for pound sterling, and then celebrate by buying some Mr. Kipling cakes. Story 84. I am having a house built in a tax haven. It is not anything large, just something sufficient to maintain easily, and I live there. Story 85. Max out my Roth individual retirement account, set aside enough to max out my Roth thrift savings plan for the year, open another Department of Veterans Affairs loan and buy another house, keep a little for the year, and invest the rest in a certificate of deposit. Story 86. Invest it in a safe dividend-yielding stock at 3%. Then collect $2,500 per month in passive income for the rest of my life. I would probably use the income toward getting that second million. Story 87. I would buy a giant inflatable duck the size of a building, put it in the middle of a random city, and live stream people's reactions while I eat cereal in a golden bathrobe from a rooftop across the street. Story 88. Set up a safeguard to prevent others from pestering me for it. Then either directly pay off my mortgage or consult with an accountant to see if $1 million can generate some interest or dividends to passively pay off my house. For $1 million, I would still work. I might be a little more careless about losing the job and say some things I otherwise would not, but generally, nothing on that end would change. Story 89. Pay off all my debt. Then pay off all my mother's debt. Then put whatever is left into my savings account. Story 90. Invest it. $1 million is not enough to live off the residuals, but you could invest it in long-term investments that should outpace inflation and allow it to grow as a good retirement fund. Find a job you like and keep working, but you do not need to worry about survival anymore since you have the million in reserve. Story 91. Aside from helping people close to me who need it, I would get a Honda S2000. I do not want a Porsche, Ferrari, Lamborghini, Aston Martin, or similar. I just want a 20-year-old Honda and eventually an even older Acura NSX. Story 92. First, hire a financial advisor. Make sure my friends and family are taken care of with mutual funds. Then die between 2 escorts, face down in a pile of cocaine. Story 93. In my country, you can buy 10 properties, rent them, and make $4,000 to $5,000 a month. I would do that and enjoy life. Story 94. Pay my wife's house off, pay the rest of our wedding expenses, and take her to Paris. Then, once I get home, just relax for about a year, and then head back to work with at least $500,000 in the bank. Story 95. Talk to an investment manager. Establish a passive income stream and determine if work is still necessary. Plan accordingly. Story 96. $500,000 to my family, and I will keep the other $500,000, donate approximately 15% of it to charity, and buy a house. Story 97. Pay off debt, pay off home mortgage, invest the majority into a savings account with a good interest rate to earn money. $1 million will not earn much, but I can leave it alone. Now that I have cleared a lot of debt, I can live better on my normal income and save more effectively. Story 98. I have been thinking about this question since my injury and the ensuing struggles. Most adults who become disabled do so due to accidents, criminal medical neglect, or disease. They are often left without adaptive equipment that could empower them to be fully self-reliant. I would immediately put resources into a trust to purchase such equipment, for example, a desktop-adapted computer with a proper ergonomic keyboard, a drafting table so crafts can be done without bending, and wheelchair and gardening assistant devices so they can still grow food, everything that promotes independence and self-support. That is what I would do because I am very familiar with how great the need is. Self-reliance was my first real dream as a child. It is a better idea to empower people to be self-reliant. This world is a dangerous place. Story 99. Pay off the house. Pay off the student loans. Pay off the car. Quit my job. With the leftover $600,000, we should have enough money for my wife and me to both finish our master's degrees full-time, and I can work on the house more. Maybe we can de-stress enough to finally have a baby. Story 100. Retire. $1 million would easily put me over the retirement hump. My house and cars are paid for. I can easily live off the dividends that $1 million in investments would provide. Story 101. Is there actually a potential for $1 million if I answer this thread? I would give more sincere answers if I knew. Story 102. First of all, I would keep it a secret. I would keep working and live my life as usual, but I would look into investing it, probably exchange-traded funds, and I would travel more. Story 103. Pay all debts. Get a house. Make my parents retire. Save a portion for my siblings' tuition. And my own. Save and have some fun. Story 104. I would build a tree farm to protect the environment and donate trees to areas that do not have them. Story 105. I misread this as trillion. My answer became much more straightforward. Pay taxes. Make sure my 401k and individual retirement account are maxed out and remain that way year after year. Buy a house closer to my sister and fix up my current one to use as a rental. See if we can find any ways to make my work situation fully remote. Story 106. Cars are paid off. Credit cards are paid off. House is half paid off. Create a fund of about $15,000 to $20,000 and invest the rest. Story 107. I would call the most expensive steakhouse in the city and get some steaks for my dog and myself to go so we can celebrate. Story 108. Set aside down payment money for my 3 daughters' homes. Set aside college funds for all the grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Pay off the existing bills and completely renovate our house. Story 109. The saddest part is people thinking that $1 million is a lot of money. This is why there are billionaires. People cannot actually quantify that sum when they make $45,000 a year. This little college lesson may help. If you had $1 billion and you took away 1 cent, you would have $999,999,999.99. 1 billion is 1,000 times 1 million. This has been a public service announcement advocating for the ultra-wealthy to pay fair taxes so that we can all have high-quality free healthcare and free higher education of all kinds. Story 110. My house is already paid off, so I would replace my theft-prone Kia with the current most reliable car on the market. From there, I am pretty much set. I would spend a good portion making my grandmother's final years as comfortable as possible. Whatever is left, I will use to travel and enjoy various conventions while the government still allows us to have those. Story 111. I will probably go eat at Morton's Steakhouse since they asked me to leave last time I tried to eat there. This is a true story and a very funny memory. Story 112. Buy a stylish suit and treat your girlfriend to a fancy dinner with excellent champagne. Make vacation plans the next day. Story 113. I would probably spend 10 minutes trying to convince myself it is not a prank. Then I would pay my bills, buy myself something nice from Amazon, and finally stop pretending I actually enjoy instant noodles. Story 114. First thing I would do is probably stare at the screen for 10 minutes to make sure it is not a typo, then refresh it 37 times just to be safe. Then I would treat myself to something wild like guacamole and extra cheese without checking the price. Living dangerously. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.